There is a small, dreamy valley hidden away among the rolling hills of New York State, a place so quiet that time itself seems to sleep there. The locals call it Sleepy Hollow. The air is always still, the sound of birds softer, and even the people who live there move slowly, as if caught in a gentle dream. But there is something else in that valley, something that chills the heart and whispers fear into the night. Long ago, during the days of the American Revolution, a soldier lost his head to a cannonball in battle near the village. Since then, the people whisper that his ghost rides through the woods every night, searching for his missing head. They call him the Headless Horseman, and his dark figure is seen most often near an old bridge where the ghostly rider vanishes at dawn. Into this strange, enchanted valley came a man named Ichabod Crane, a schoolteacher from Connecticut. He was tall and thin, with a narrow face, long nose, and arms that seemed to dangle almost to his knees. His walk was awkward, and his eyes, though small, were sharp and hungry, especially when he looked at food. Ichabod loved two things: good eating and ghost stories. He believed every tale of spirits and witches that he heard, and in Sleepy Hollow, there were plenty of such stories. By day, he taught the village children, keeping order with a birch rod and a loud voice. He was not a bad teacher. In fact, the children liked him, but he was a man of strange habits. He would sing loudly in church, help farmers with small chores in exchange for meals, and wander from house to house collecting gossip and ghost stories. At night, when he returned to the small house where he stayed, he would read books about witchcraft and marvel at the mysterious sounds of the valley, the wind sighing through the trees, the distant hoot of an owl, or the creak of the old schoolhouse door. Among the families of Sleepy Hollow, none was richer or more respected than Baltus Van Tassel, a cheerful old Dutch farmer who owned wide fields, orchards, and cattle. But more than his wealth, people admired his daughter, Katrina Van Tassel. Katrina was a young woman of about 18, fresh, full of life, and as pretty as a peach from her father's orchard. She was known not only for her beauty but also for her charm and playful spirit. She loved to laugh, dance, and tease the many young men who came to court her. When Ichabod first saw Katrina, he was struck by her beauty, and by her father's wealth. His eyes gleamed as he imagined himself the master of the Van Tassel estate, enjoying fine meals every day and living a life of comfort. At once, he decided that Katrina would be his. But Ichabod was not the only man who wanted Katrina. His strongest rival was Abraham Van Brunt, better known as Brum Bones. Brum was the hero of the countryside, a tall, broad-shouldered young man known for his strength, good humor, and love of mischief. He was the best horseman in the county, brave as a lion and always ready for a prank. Everyone liked Brum Bones except Ichabod Crane. Brum often tried to play tricks on Ichabod. He trained his dog to howl during Ichabod's singing lessons, spread rumors that Ichabod was afraid of ghosts, and even galloped past him at night, pretending to be the Headless Horseman. But Ichabod, being clever and cautious, avoided direct fights. He continued to visit Katrina, bringing her little gifts, reading poetry to her, and pretending to be a man of great learning and taste. One golden autumn evening, an invitation came to the whole village. Baltus Van Tassel was hosting a grand harvest party at his farmhouse. There would be feasting, music, and dancing, and everyone was excited. Ichabod dressed in his best black coat, borrowed an old horse named Gunpowder from a local farmer, and set off toward the Van Tassel farm. Gunpowder was a rough, one-eyed creature, as stubborn as his rider was lanky, and together they made a most ridiculous pair. The party was a lively affair. The big farmhouse glowed with candles, the air filled with laughter and the smell of roasted meat and apple pies. The girls were dressed in bright ribbons, the young men in their finest coats, and old Baltus welcomed everyone with hearty cheer. Ichabod's eyes sparkled as he gazed at the tables covered with food, pies, cakes, roast turkey, and cider. But his heart was truly set on Katrina, who looked more beautiful than ever in a simple white dress. He danced with her again and again, while Brum Bones watched in silence, his smile tight and his fists clenched. After the feast and dancing, the guests gathered around the fire to tell stories. The old men smoked their pipes, the women whispered, and the younger ones leaned closer to listen. Brumbones told of his encounter with the Headless Horseman, how he had raced the ghost on horseback and almost won, until the specter vanished at the church bridge. Others spoke of strange lights, haunted houses, and witches who flew through the night sky. Ichabod listened with wide eyes, trembling with both fear and fascination. He believed every word. The shadows seemed deeper, the wind louder, and the flickering fire made ghostly faces dance on the walls. When the stories ended, it was late, far past midnight. The guests began to leave, laughing nervously as they stepped into the cool night. Ichabod lingered, hoping for a private word with Katrina. No one knows exactly what passed between Ichabod and Katrina that night, but it is said that she turned him away. Perhaps she was only teasing him, or perhaps she had chosen Brumbones all along. Whatever it was, Ichabod left the house pale and silent, his heart heavy with disappointment. He mounted Gunpowder and rode off into the darkness, the laughter from the farmhouse fading behind him. The road back wound through woods and meadows, across streams, and past the very places said to be haunted. The moon had gone behind the clouds, and the night was filled with eerie sounds. Frogs croaking, crickets chirping, and the rustle of leaves. Ichabod's imagination, fed by the ghost stories he'd heard, began to play tricks on him. Every shadow seemed to move. Every tree looked like a phantom. He tried to whistle, but his voice trembled. Gunpowder's ears twitched nervously. As Ichabod approached a great tree said to be haunted by the ghost of a soldier, his heart pounded. Suddenly, he saw something. A dark shape by the roadside, still and silent. His breath caught. Was it a tree stump? A shadow? He called out, but no answer came. Then the shape moved. It was a horseman, tall, broad, and mounted on a powerful black steed. Ichabod tried to see the rider's face, but there was none. The figure's head was missing. In its place sat a shape held before him, as if the ghost carried his own head in his hands. Terror seized Ichabod. He kicked Gunpowder hard, and the frightened horse leaped forward. The dark rider followed, galloping beside him with thunderous speed. Down the hollow roads they raced, over hills, past fences, across streams. The ghost stayed close, silent but unstoppable. Ichabod's heart nearly burst with fear. He dared not look back, yet he could hear the pounding hooves and the ghost's heavy breathing. He remembered Brumbone's tale, that the ghost would vanish once he reached the bridge by the old church. If only he could get there. Go, Gunpowder, go! He cried, whipping the poor horse with all his strength. The trees seemed to close in, the night darker than ever. The sound of the rider grew louder, closer. Then, through the shadows, Ichabod saw it, the bridge. With a final burst of energy, Gunpowder charged forward and thundered across. Ichabod turned his head. Yes, the ghost was still following. But instead of vanishing, the figure rose in his saddle and hurled something at Ichabod's head. There was a crash, a blinding pain, and Ichabod tumbled from his horse. Gunpowder galloped on, riderless, into the night. The next morning, Gunpowder was found grazing near his owner's gate. But there was no sign of Ichabod. The schoolhouse was empty. His books, papers, and ruler lay scattered, and near the church bridge, they found his hat and a shattered pumpkin. The villagers searched the woods and river but found no trace of the schoolmaster. Some said the Headless Horseman had taken him away. Others whispered that Ichabod had fled the valley in shame after Katrina rejected him. Years later, a traveler passing through another village said he had seen a man who looked very much like Ichabod Crane, teaching school and telling stories about Sleepy Hollow. But in the valley itself, they believed the ghost had claimed him. As for Brumbones, he soon married Katrina, and whenever anyone mentioned Ichabod's disappearance, he only laughed. A deep, knowing laugh that made people wonder. Even now, Sleepy Hollow remains a quiet place, filled with misty fields and ancient trees. The people still tell stories by the fire on autumn nights, and when the moon is hidden and the wind is high, travelers sometimes say they see a dark figure on horseback riding through the woods, a rider without a head, galloping toward the old bridge before the first light of dawn. And thus the legend lives, the tale of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow, a story of fear, foolishness, and the mysterious power of imagination. The legend of Sleepy Hollow is not just a ghost story, it's a mirror of human nature. Ichabod's greed and superstition blinded him to reason. Brahm's pride and jealousy showed the cruelty of rivalry. And the village itself, wrapped in dreams and legends, reminds us how easily fear can take the shape of truth. It is a tale that whispers across generations. Not every ghost is real, but every fear is.